Good morning, grade fours. I hope you enjoyed your 4-day long weekend, which is why I didn't post, by the way, if you were looking for something yesterday, is because theoretically Monday was a holiday for you guys. Anyway, today we're going to be looking at two more really cool multiplication strategies that will help you to multiply using mental math, but also it will help you a little bit with your math facts in general. So the first one we're looking at is just the 10 times tables. And some of you are probably thinking, well, I know my 10 times tables. What's the big deal with this? But there actually is a really neat, very easy, straightforward strategy when you multiply by 10. We're going to talk a little bit about what happens. So basically, when you multiply by 10, 5 times 10 is 50, 8 times 10 is 80, 12 times 10 is 120. 231 times 10 is 2,310. What you'll realize with all of these problems is basically what you've done is you've taken the original number 5, the original number 8, 12, and 231 and just stuck an extra 0 from the 10 onto that answer to get your answer. So when you're multiplying by 10, basically the rule is all you have to do is take the 0 from the 10 and stick it on to the 5. Basically, you're combining these two to make 50. So it makes it a lot easier, and it's true for any number that you multiply by 10. So take a look at this crazy number. So if I have, this is a big number, 21,583 times 10 is just going to be the same. You're just going to stick a 0 on the end. Now, this is a hard number to read, but I'll read it for you. It's 215,830. And so it's the same rule no matter how. I could have a number here that had 20 digits in it. If I multiplied it by 10, it's going to have a 0 on the end because of that 10. So that's basically the strategy when you're multiplying by 10. And that will help you remember your 10 times tables. But it also is true for any base. These are called base 10 numbers, a number that starts with 1 and has zeros after it. So a number like 10, 100, and 1000, you do the same thing. The only difference is you add zeros onto your answer depending on how many zeros you are multiplying by. So for example, in 5 times 10, I have 1 0 in my 10. I have 1 0 to the 5, which gives me the answer 50. If I was to multiply 5 times 100, it's the same strategy. I take the 2 zeros in 100 and I'm going to stick them onto my 5. So there's my 5 and there's my 2 zeros, and I'm just sticking them on the end. 8 times 10 is 80, but 8 times 1,000, I'm taking the 3 zeros now from 1,000 and sticking them on the 8, and my answer is 8,000. 12 times 10 is 120, but if I go 12 times 100, same deal. There's my 12. There's the 2 zeros from 100. And if I did a big number like 231 times 1,000, here's my 231. Here's my 3 zeros from my 1,000. So the answer would be 231,000. So that's a good strategy whenever you're multiplying by a number like 10, 100, or 1,000. All you do is take those zeros and stick them on the end of the digit that you're multiplying the 10, 100, or thousands by. It makes it really, really simple. So let's try these together. So if I have 7 times 100, then I put my 7 in there. I have 2 more zeros that I have to add because of that 100. There's my 2 zeros. I'm adding my 2 zeros. My answer is 700, right? If I start with my 12, I'm going to add the 1 0 onto the 10. It's going to be 120. Okay, I'm going to let you do this one in your. I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to try and do this one in your head to see if you can come up with an answer. Did you get the answer? So I've got my 43, got 2 zeros after it. So there's my 43, there's my 2 zeros, and this is read 4,300. Here, I've got my 3 zeros after it, 3,000. This one, here's my 29, 2 zeros from my 100, 2,900. So that's how you do those. I think most of you are going to find these pretty straightforward. I'm going to give you a few of those for homework, and I think you'll probably get them. You'll probably find that pretty easy. The next strategy is a little more complicated, and it is called halving and doubling. And this is how it works. Halving and doubling is a strategy that helps you to solve multiplication using mental math. In a multiplication equation, if you double one number and times, whoops, I wrote this improperly. It should say double one number, um, and then, sorry, that was right actually, and multiply that one by half of the other, you get the same answer, which sounds wordy, but let me explain it with examples. So if I have 4 times 3, all right, so say I have 4 times 3, here's an array of 4 dots by 3 dots. So if we count those dots, we can see there are 12 dots. 4 and 3 groups of 4. So there's my 3 groups, first group of 4, second group of 4, third group of 4. Multiply those, I get 12. So look what happens, however, when we divide the 4 in half and double the 3. All right, so we're going to take a look. If we divide that 4 in half and double the 3, what is going to happen? All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut that 4 in half, right? It's going to become a 2, right? So we're going to cut that 4 in half. It's going to become 2. So that 4 is going to be a 2 now. Let's delete this and make it a 2. So there's my 2. And my 3, I'm going to double my 3 and make it a 6. Double means timesing it by 2. So here I have 2 rows, 6 columns. But you'll notice I haven't gotten any more dots. The dots are the same. The answer is still 12. So I've basically taken the 4, divided it in half to make it 2, taken the 3, doubled it to get 6. Now, what you're probably thinking right now is, Mr. Gallant, I knew what 4 times 3 was. Why would I need to change it to 2 times 6? That doesn't help me. Well, in this particular example, you're right, it doesn't really help you too much because you probably know what 4 times 3 is. However, in bigger numbers, it can actually make it a lot easier to double in half. And the reason you double in half is to try and get one of these to a friendly number. And if we go back to this, these are friendly numbers, right? All of the base 10 numbers are friendly numbers because when you multiply by these, you just add the 0, you're going to know the answer. So if you can try and half and double to get one of those numbers to be a 10 or 100, or even a 5, because sometimes you know what the multiplication tables are for 5. So that's going to make your job a lot easier. So let's take a look. So just another example of that exact question. So I still have 12. So let's take a look at what halving and doubling actually does. So halving and doubling can be very effective for figuring out tricky multiplication problems that you could not figure out just using mental math. It does not matter which number you have and which one you double. But the number you are halving should be an even number, that is, ending in 0, 2, 4, 6, or 8. Why do you think it should be even? Because you cannot cut an odd number in half. Like, for example, the number 7, you can't, there's no number that you can divide 7 in half by. 2 doesn't go in evenly to 7. It would be 3.5, and we're not doing decimals and fractions. So let's take a look at how this might work with another example. So I have 5 and 18. You probably don't know 5 times 18 off the top of your head. But which one of these would you double and which one of these would you halve? Well, I would double my 5 because if I double 5, I get 10. And 10 is a friendly number. All I have to do, if I double the 5 to 10, all I have to do is figure out what half of 18 is. And if you know your 2 times tables, you know that 2 times 9 is 18. Half of 18 is 9. So this then becomes a question like this. 10, my 5 is doubled to 10. My 18 is cut in half to 9. And then I know that's 90 because of using the strategy of multiplying by 10. I just stick my 0 on the end of the 9. It becomes 90. So that makes it really easy to do in my head. Otherwise, I wouldn't know what this was in my head, right? Just by looking at it. Let's try these. So these are some more examples. So let's say if I was got 5 and 8, well, I'm not going to cut my 5 in half, so I know I have to double my 5 because it's an odd number. So I'm doubling my 5 to 10. I'm going to cut my 8 in half. Half of 8 is 4. And then I know, well, that's easy. I can just go 4. Whoops, I'm just going to make this box bigger here. Then I'm just going to go 10 times 4, and I know that's 40 because of the lesson we just did. Okay, so this is another one here. I've got 50 and I've got 12. So you have to think, well, which one am I going to half and which one am I going to double? If I doubled 12, I get 24. That's not a friendly number. But if I doubled 50, 2 times 50 is 100. That's easy, right? 50 cents times 2 is $1. So I know 50 times 2 is 100. This makes my job really easy because I can use that same strategy I used before. Half of 12, 12 divided in half is 6. And I know that 100 times 6 is 600. I'm just going to take these 2 zeros, stick them on the end of the 6, and you're good to go. Now this one could be a little trickier because what I've got here are 2 numbers that don't seem to half very easily. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, okay, well, wait a minute here. If I double this to 8, that's not going to make my job easier. So I'm going to half my 4 to 2. And then I'm going to double my 40, which becomes 80. And I know that 2 times 8 is 16. And if 2 times 8 is 16, I'm just going to stick that 0 on the end. That's going to be 160. Over here, now, this one becomes a little tricky. However, 8 in half is 4. That doesn't really help me. 20 in half is 10. That's pretty easy to do. So I'm going to double my 8 and half my 20. 2 times 8 is 16. Half of 20 is 10. And look at that. I get 160. So those two answers are the same. Over here, 25 times 8. Well, remember I said an odd number, you can't half an odd number. So I'm going to double my 25 because I know that 25 cents plus 25 cents is 50 cents. So I'm doubling that to 50 cents. Now I'm going to cut my 8 in half to 4, right? And now I can figure out that 50 cents, and I have 4 times 50 cents, that's $2 or 200. So that's just another sort of examples of halving and doubling. Some of these are a little trickier, um, but these ones here will certainly help you going forward. If you have got a number that you have to multiply, and it's a bit tricky, but you sort of think you can double or half one of them to get a friendly number, then go for it because that will make your job a lot easier. So let's take a look at what we've learned. We learned about multiplying by 10, 100, and 1,000, and we learned this halving and doubling strategy. So take a look on the Classcraft on Google Classroom. I'm going to give you a couple of questions or pages of questions that deal with these two ideas. Have a good Tuesday. Enjoy the rest of your day.